Hi everyone, my name is Lisa Brady and I will be presenting my older adult oral video presentation, Erikson's Theory of Psychosocial Development. His theory encompasses 8 stages of development ranging from birth to old age. I have chosen Erikson's 4th stage of biopsychosocial theory of development, industry versus inferiority. This period encompasses the time in a child's life from ages 6 through 12. During this period, a child compares themselves with their peers to see if they measure up. They either develop a sense of pride and accomplishment in the activities that they do at school and home, or they feel inferior and inadequate because they feel that they don't measure up. If children during this stage of development have negative experiences at home or with their peers, they may feel inferior. They either develop a sense of accomplishment or inadequacy. Developmental stage. Verbal abuse due to father's alcohol dependence. My aunt was born in a house 87 years ago in historic Newcastle, Delaware. She lived there with her parents until they moved from 2nd Street to 5th Street, also in Old Newcastle. She was an only child. Her father was an alcoholic and verbally abused her and her mother. Her parents argued frequently. He worked as a bus driver. He was often so drunk that he would sleep in the bus or on a bench or in an alley. He used to hide bottles under the bed. It was in this house that her father left her and her mother. She was 7 years old. Her parents got divorced, but she did not want this to happen. She said, "I told my mother not to divorce him, but she did anyway." According to Sutherland, Altenhofen, and Beringen, low-quality parent-child interactions have been associated with children's behavioral and emotional problems. My aunt told me she never cries. She said, "I'm not a crier. I was taught not to cry." My aunt suppresses her emotions. She acts tough on the outside, but inside, I believe she harbors a lot of unresolved emotions. Developmental stage. Adjusting to a new home, my aunt had to move in with her grandparents due to financial reasons. Her uncle also lived there. My aunt said things were fine there, although she would rather be back at her house. Sutherland states stress due to the divorce could negatively affect parent-children interactions, which could in turn affect children's attachment security. But in my aunt's case, I don't think this was the case. She and her mother were formed a very close attachment. They were very, very close. Her mother was there for her always. In other words, she had a high level of emotional availability. Emotional availability is defined as the ability of a caregiver to read and respond to a child's emotional cues in a way that meets the child's emotional needs. Among my aunt's accomplishments during this time, she went to the Girl Scouts, she went to after-school and church activities, she went to Catholic school, so was involved in many church-related activities, as well as school activities. She liked school and she said she did okay in school. However, she would not say any more about her education, despite me prompting her. Psychosocial crisis resolution. The psychosocial crisis, according to Erikson, stressed that an individual's personality goes through 8 different stages in their life. In addition, each stage has a crisis involved in it. He believed the crisis could have impact on the individual later in life. The crisis in my aunt's life was the trauma she suffered from during this 4th stage. I feel she mastered the industrial side as she grew up with a secure and loving mother and a loving family. Her father would come back from time to time just to stir up trouble. I believe it was during these times my aunt experienced inferiority. Her father would make derogatory statements to her and her mother, leaving her feeling unloved, hurt, and inferior. Her mother protected her when he was there. Then he would leave and she would again feel this abandonment. Her father never sought help for his alcoholism and unfortunately died at an early age. A study done by Thompson, Alonso, Grant, and Hassan asserts that a correlation between divorce, maternal or paternal alcohol problems, and long-term offspring alcohol dependence. The chances of children repeating alcohol dependence of their parents, in this case, increases substantially when this is the case. My aunt is now experiencing alcohol dependence in her life long term. My aunt said she did all right in school but would not elaborate further. Comparative studies done by Daniel Potter suggest that divorced children are more likely to not do as well in school as children of intact families. Psychosocial crisis resolution. Dealing with the psychosocial crisis. Some ways the family may influence coping processes are coaching, modeling, and aspects of the family context. The tremendously secure attachment between my aunt and her mother was their strength to get through the adversity that they endured. Some of the psychosocial factors that may have facilitated the resolution of the psychosocial crisis was the very close relationship between my aunt and her mother. She taught my aunt so much, and my aunt wanted to be just like her mother. Some ways the family may influence coping processes are coaching, modeling, and aspects of the family context. Valise, Walchik, Tyne, and Sandler. My aunt's faith, as well as her mother's, got them through these tough times. In this way, their bond with each other became even stronger. Her mother got a job as an executive secretary for the DuPont Company, but it was not enough for them to live on their own. So they remained at the grandparents' house throughout her high school years. Her psychosocial, emotional, and cognitive state was positively affected by her strong Catholic faith. She wanted to become a nun, but decided not to pursue a vocation in religious life because she didn't want to leave her mother. She had the interview with the nuns, which went well, until they told her that she would have to live in the convent and never return home to her mother. The town of Old Newcastle was home to a very diverse population. There were young families, elderly couples, and young adults of different racial and ethnic backgrounds. In addition, many family friends lived nearby. It was a diverse community where practically everyone knew each other. My aunt said she lived in Old Newcastle her entire life. She still lives there today, as well as 3 of her sons. She told me that most of her high school class still lives in Old Newcastle as well. These factors facilitated the resolution of the psychosocial crisis. Psychosocial crisis resolution. One of the psychosocial factors and events that I feel inhibited the resolution of the psychosocial crisis was that her father kept returning to the house, thus re-traumatizing both her and her mother, as well as affecting the other family members that lived there. He never stayed long, as her grandparents, or her mother, would make him leave. Her father never sought help for his alcoholism. Oppression did shape my aunt's life experience. She and her mother were very poor. They endured a lot of financial hardship. Her father never supported them financially, although he had a job as a bus driver. She, as a result, never wants to spend money now. She's very frugal. She keeps everything. Psychosocial crisis resolution. In discussing biopsychosocial factors or events that may have facilitated and/or inhibited the resolution of the psychosocial crisis, I will apply the multi-systems lens to examine how these formal and informal support systems benefited my aunt. At the micro level, my aunt had a very strong bond with her mother, as I mentioned earlier. They were very happy together and served as an emotional support for each other. At the meso level, my aunt's family, friends, and church all played a positive role in her well-being, alleviating some of the negative impact that the adversity and trauma she endured. They would play cards together, shop, and swim in the river, which there was a river only a couple blocks away. It was called the Delaware River, and they used to swim there and have fun together. At the macro level, my aunt was involved in efforts to improve the Old Newcastle cleanup project at the Delaware River and Battery Park. One of her close friends is a member of the city council there. She works with him to improve the community of historic Newcastle. Macro social work practice, I believe, is distinctive in comparison with other helping professions because it uses this macro level. As Roger stated, this multi-lens approach can be used to explore how past issues on different levels have affected clients, as well as how they are affecting clients' current functioning. I feel my aunt has triumphed over her adversity and trauma because of the amazing love that existed between she and her mother. She was also victorious over her crisis because of her incredibly strong faith. Her mother shared this strong Catholic faith as well. Thus, their church provided help with food and resources they needed. They were very involved in their lives. They also socialized a lot at the church, which was also the same as the school she attended. Yes, this church and this school are located in Old Newcastle too. I find it very interesting that they never left their small town community. I have chosen John Bowlby's attachment theory as my additional theory. And John Bowlby formulated the attachment theory. The main premise is that a child forms an initial attachment to one caregiver, usually the mother, but it could be anyone. The attachment allows the child to be away from her mother while knowing that she has a secure base to return to home. 4 characteristics of attachment theory are secure, ambivalent, avoidant, and disorganized. I will not go into all of these due to time constraints. My aunt classifies as the secure attachment characteristic. My aunt and her mother were very, very close. In fact, you could say that she was her mother's world and her mother was her world. I believe she was already close to her mother, but when her father left, they became almost inseparable. She did not move away from her mother until she got married at age 19. Even after she got married, she and her husband bought a house very near to her mother in Old Newcastle. I have chosen Erikson's theory to cite some limitations. I feel that he compartmentalizes development by aligning the stages by age groups and in a linear fashion. There's more differences and variations that don't fit into his 8 stages. He also did not take into account other factors such as socioeconomic or cultural impacts of the stages. In addition, these stages do not necessarily compare to a linear stage. I think these stages can be combined. They can not only overlap, but even possibly regress to previous stages and then return. I think it's somewhat idealistic to think that everyone fits into these stages in this linear sequence. Here are a list of my references. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.